I feel like
Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Wednesday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. We have a lot to get to on the show. So make sure you get your fantasy football questions in as we get ready for the waiver wire rebound to see the most drop players that could be of interest to us, plus taking a look at the players that are still available out there in fantasy football. We're going to get into some UFC, some WWE, and AEW, plus whatever you guys want to talk about as well. But did a not live podcast yesterday and thought there was a couple good things in there that still wanted to get to the live folks. So this was previously recorded looking at Shedeur Sanders, which is news now because he is starting against the Vegas Raiders this weekend. We're going to look at that. And I went into the talk of the Josh Naylor contract with the Seattle Mariners. So I'm still here, going to be hanging out, getting everything ready. If you want to chat, we can. But thought I would just play some previously recorded stuff for you guys here before we got this show on the road. Shedeur Sanders didn't really impress people this week in relief for the Cleveland Browns. And that has a lot of people doing a little bit of grave dancing right now. And I am perplexed at the reactions to this young quarterback and specifically to this performance. So let's break down why I think people are really rushing to judgment here. If you happen to miss it, Shedeur Sanders, a bit of a stumble this week in his debut for the Cleveland Browns. And obviously, this is not your regular backup or third string quarterback. This is someone who brings a lot of name value, given who he was as a college football quarterback and who his dad was and is. So there's a lot that goes into this equation. But the people who are coming out this week being like, oh yeah, see, told you, I would like to go on record and say this proved nothing to me. Absolutely nothing to me whatsoever. No one ever said he was going to be ready to play and to be a starter in the NFL in year number one. That was always, honestly, that was always the discussion around this kid. And I think a lot of it got lost in some of the extracurriculars that were going on around the draft process. But I don't understand I don't understand why we are surprised when the kid who wasn't ever going to be ready to play in year number one, wasn't drafted to play in year number one, hasn't prepared to play in year number one, wasn't good in year number one. Of course he wasn't. He was never going to be. No one, even the people the highest on him as a quarterback prospect, would tell you that this kid was going to be ready to be a day one starter. There wasn't a soul out there who was going to tell you, or they were being delusional or lying to you or whatever. Honestly, maybe they were just wrong. But anyone who watched and anyone who knew had a pretty good understanding that this was going to be a project. Now, a project that could deem some good results still, but this was going to be a project. I never looked at Shedeur as a prospect, someone who could come in week one and start for my football team. He was always going to have to redshirt, which was always going to be part of the problem with this kid because the attention was going to outweigh the ability in year one. And what was best for him wasn't necessarily going to be what was great for a lot of the attention that would be brought in. So I thought you needed a solid as heck starting quarterback. You needed a firmly planted head coach in whatever organization that was going to draft him, and reputationally in the National Football League anyway, and you were going to need to be able to bring this kid along. And that was why the draft process, initially, why I understood him falling the way that he did. Because when you look at the teams that were at the top of the draft, it was going to be Cleveland. It was always going to be a little bit tricky to have him be the backup quarterback with Joe Flacco as the starter. And Kevin Stefanski, quite frankly, coaching for his job, because there was going to be a lot of calls to bring this kid in and everything like that. And he's just not ready. We saw that abundantly clear, but he was never going to be. He's not getting the starter reps in practice, nor should he. And development of a quarterback, it's a bigger issue in the NFL, but it's a little wonky at times for the backups. So what happened on Sunday shouldn't change anyone's mind. It shouldn't surprise anyone. It definitely should not change the mind of anyone who was following this kid and who was getting ready for this draft process at all. I don't get the real. Well, I do, because of everything that came with that draft and the attention that this kid's people brought onto him and everything around who he is and who his dad is. So I understand the celebrating today, but if you're using Sunday to justify anything, I think you are really missing the bigger picture, and you're probably doing it on purpose. Am I wrong? Like, I am sure, me saying no one thought this kid was going to be a day one starter, a day one starter. I am sure that there were people who were out there saying this guy can turn franchises around right away. So maybe I am overstating some of that part of it anyway. But where am I wrong? Where are the lies in what I said? Let me know in the comment section there. Would love to debate this with you guys, as this is obviously a hot button issue in the National Football League. And hey, if you like this, check out the podcast wherever you get your pods. Just search Couch Potato Diary on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartMusic, all those places. Just search out Couch Potato Diary and bring me with you wherever you go. Let's move now to the world of baseball. The free agent period in baseball is off to a crawling start, but one of the big names is off the board, and he is staying out on the West Coast as Josh Naylor inks a deal with the Mariners that makes so much sense. So, let's discuss. Josh Naylor is sticking with the Seattle Mariners as he signs a 5-year contract worth a little bit more than $90 million, maybe a little bit more than you'd want to pay him, but I think it makes all the sense in the world. You look at the transformation that this offense made with him and Suarez being brought in separate moves at or around the trade deadline for Seattle, and you look at how this team is built with high-level pitching, despite what the Blue Jays did to it in 4 of those 7 games. With high-level pitching, and with him now, Arozarena and Rodriguez at the top half of that lineup, it's a very good baseball team. And Naylor, with the power that he can provide, with the approach that he has up at the plate, and just a bit of a calming influence up there as well. I can tell you, from a Blue Jays fan standpoint, watching him play and watching the Jays take them on in a 7-game American League Championship Series, wasn't really stoked to see that dude. Also, I'm realizing now I forgot to say Kyle Raleigh in the middle of that lineup. Apologies. Obviously, that's the biggest threat there. But it is a support, right? And that is what he provides. So yes, like obviously, as a Blue Jays fan, wasn't stoked to have to pitch to Kyle Raleigh. After that, Naylor was kind of the one that scared you the most, right? So that was, I think, a very smart signing for Seattle, and it really does show that they recognize what they have right now. I think this is a championship team. I really do. There's still a full off season to go, and there is still some work to be done. They obviously didn't have enough bullpen arms that they trusted at the back part, specifically of Game 7 of the American League Championship Series there against Toronto. Maybe you could round out the back of that lineup a little bit more and a couple innings eaters pitching wise, but this is it's tweaks now, right? They don't need to go get Kyle Tucker to try to make themselves a contender or anything like that. This is a very, very good ball club and a really dangerous one. And when you look at the Astros having to figure it out again, the Angels perpetually being them, the A's and the Rangers, this feels like one of the dominant teams in their division at this particular time. And I think this signing really does kind of solidify a couple of those things. So very, very strong work here for the Seattle Mariners in getting the first real domino to fall here in free agency. I will say, just, I'm a Blue Jay fan. I don't hide it. I guess I'm not wearing anything right now. You can kind of see the cap back there. Maybe not really. Either way, Blue Jay fan here. So I've always wanted this guy on my team. There's no fit for it. The Blue Jays already have a pretty good first baseman and 2 DH types. They already are figuring out what to do with a designated hitter, so you don't need another one coming in. So it wasn't going to fit for him with Toronto, but boy, I wish that they had that bat in the lineup. I love watching this dude play the sport. So congrats Mariners fans who get to enjoy him now for the next 5 seasons. But what else? Mariners fans, anyone disagree? Like, is there oh no, they shouldn't have done this move? This one felt like an easy one to me. But if you have any disagreement, let me know down in the comments. And what's the next big contract to fall? Let me know down in the comments. A lot changes with Couch Potato Diary on a daily, hourly basis. So keep in touch with me and the show by following me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and on Blue Sky. Keep saying it, but want to post a lot of stuff out there from the show and some updates and everything there. So really trying to round out the social media game, so there's going to be more stuff to come on that in the weeks, months, years ahead. So make sure you give me a follow there on, again, all the social media platforms. I am at Primetime Klein.
so comfortable with you. I feel like
We'll help you out if you didn't get the right guy in the fantasy football waiver wire, or any guys in the fantasy football waiver wire. Plus, UFC 322 shakes up the pound for pound rankings, even if it did get a little bit predictable. And we recap Monday Night Raw, get ready for a big weekend for AEW, plus whatever you guys want to talk about. And I get to gloat about the riders. So a lot to cover. Couch Potato Diary starts right now. All right, welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you all very much for hanging out here on the stream today. If you're watching live, or if we are hanging out after the fact or listening in podcast form, wherever you are tuning in today, I would really appreciate it. Or I do really appreciate it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out today. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all the great Calgary swag. We still got the Jerome shirts right now, with all the profits going to Kidsport to help out that fantastic organization here in Calgary, but some good stuff outside of that as well. And we are fueled by Swift Energy. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime for 25% off. Tall John, get the ones up for War Games. Yes, we have to acknowledge our War Games tribal chief, as Roman Reigns is back. We'll talk about that. Of the returns for War Games anyway, for that happened on Monday, that was the one I was the more excited about, that's for sure, as we continue to have to deal with Brock Lesnar in our lives. Brock Lesnar, who was just at a hockey game I was broadcasting a little bit ago. That was a interesting thing to just walk through. You see on the sheet, one of the kids was named Lesnar, and you say, oh, wow, that'd be kind of interesting. And then see him on the ice. It's like, well, at least related, big dude. And then you walk through the hallway after. It's like, well, that is absolutely Brock Lesnar. That could be no one else other than who that guy is. But still not thrilled that he's going to be on my television. We'll get to that as the day rolls along. Like I have always said, for those of you who are watching live, if you want to talk about anything that I'm not talking about, you can just throw it in the chat. I'll finish up what we're discussing, and then we will get to what you want to get to in as quickly as I can. So remember, get your fantasy football questions in, and let's get to it as we get ready for a Wednesday here today. Fantasy football's waiver wire can be a gold mine. It can also be very frustrating if you don't get who you want. But have no fear. We know that roster building doesn't just end Wednesday morning. It's a week-long process, and we are here to help. Let's take a look at the players who are the most dropped in fantasy to see if we can find a little bit of value and get a rebound off of the waiver wire. Fantasy football waiver wire rebound is what we call this. Taking a look at the players that were the most dropped in fantasy football and who are still the most available. Let's start with the most dropped. This, of course, according to Yahoo. And there's actually, we haven't really had this before. There's a couple quarterbacks that I'm interested in at this moment. First, it's J.J. McCarthy, Minnesota Vikings quarterback, the most dropped QB in Yahoo in this waiver wire period. Don't love him for this week. It's a tough matchup against the Green Bay Packers. And then you have Seattle after that. So it's a couple of tough ones. This is a bit more of a future play here. After that, he has Washington, Dallas, the Giants, and the Detroit Lions to close out the season. So I don't think he's a bad stash if you want to have someone big for the fantasy playoffs, because I think he could kind of end the season here really strong. And Minnesota is going to need to win a lot of those games if they are going to be successful and make their way into the postseason. The other player that I'm interested in, he's actually the second most dropped QB. Swig of water from an Undertaker cup for dramatic effect. And because I'm thirsty. Joe Flacco, second most dropped QB. Facing the Patriots, you can pass on this team a little bit. They are, from a fantasy standpoint, they're a pretty good defense when you look at the numbers. But if you take a bit of a deeper dive into it, let's take a look. Let's dive in. Let's see what this team has faced, and we will kind of understand where some of those numbers are coming from, and maybe why I don't think it is as difficult of a matchup this week for one Joe Flacco. So yes, they are. I think I saw 18th, 19th in terms of fantasy points given up to quarterbacks. Well, they faced Justin Fields this week, so you're not going to give up a whole lot there. Baker Mayfield got to them for a pretty good game, even in a loss. Michael Penix Jr. didn't put up a ton of yards, but 3 touchdown passes. After that, played the Browns, the Titans, and the Saints. So not a whole lot of fantasy goodness there. The Bills, Josh Allen can do his thing. But then Bryce Young and the Panthers, the Steelers, who I'm a little wishy-washy on, the Dolphins, and the Raiders. So it's not exactly a Hall of Fame list of quarterbacks that this New England defense has faced so far this year, which means I think Joe Flacco actually has some pretty good fantasy value here this week. Obviously, no Jamar Chase, so that becomes a bit of a problem, but I think that Flacco can still be a productive quarterback for you if you are in need of a victory here this week. We have It's Okay to Laugh -1 in the YouTube chat. Given the injuries, who to handcuff for Javonte Williams? We will get into that in just a little bit. Okay to Laugh. We'll want to dive into that one a little bit more in depth. We'll finish up here with the rebound, so if you can hang tight, we will get to that question in just a moment. Let's go now to the wide receivers. The second most dropped receiver on Yahoo this week was Parker Washington with Jacksonville. Only 2 targets last week. That was a weird blowout, and they ran the football really well. Coming down the stretch here, Jacksonville has the Colts twice, they have the Titans, and they have the Jets left on their schedule. So Parker Washington could be in for some decent games. I understand they brought in Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas Jr., maybe, who knows who's back when. But Parker Washington, I think, is going to have still a little bit of fantasy value for teams. So I think there is an opportunity for you to go out and check out if your league was one of the ones that he was dropped in. Next up, we have Quentin Johnston, 4th most dropped receiver in Yahoo. And I should say, still 78% rostered, but give it a look in your league. Chargers on a bye, very unimpressive last week against Jacksonville. So maybe the owner in your league was just fed up and dropped him. I think that there are some great matchups for him down the stretch. There's some gold in them there hills. You look at the rest of the way. Coming out of the bye, they have the Raiders, and they also have the Cowboys in the fantasy playoffs. So some pretty good matchups for Los Angeles. Obviously, the offensive line is a concern, but I think Quentin Johnston has a chance to get his. And then dropping down a little bit further than we normally do on the list, but wanted to talk about this guy, Rashid Shaheed with Seattle, 6th most dropped wide receiver in Yahoo. Again, 72% rostered, but so take a look. He's getting on the same page as Sam Darnold, and it could take a little bit of time, but they have a great matchup against Tennessee this week, and that should give you the time that you need to maybe get him back on track. So I think there is a very real option here with a guy who is just a phenomenal deep threat and is also someone who I think fits with what this offense wants to do when you look at the deep shots that they are taking and everything like that. Up next, we have running backs. Kamani Vidal was the 4th most dropped running back in Yahoo. Again, tough loss. This is still, I think, again, the offensive line having some problems, but Kamani Vidal is, I think, still the number 1 there with the Chargers. And I still like a lot of what this team could potentially do, even though there is a bit of an injury concern there. I think he'll be back. I think he'll be fine. So I do want to, I would like to take a look at that and maybe take advantage of some people getting a little bit frustrated with that situation. At tight end, we have a couple. First, the 2nd most dropped tight end of the week was Cade Otton. Bit of a down game against Buffalo, but still had 5 targets, and I think is still a solid option if you need help at tight end. And then Colston Loveland, the 4th most dropped tight end. Great matchup with Pittsburgh. He is the number 2, or was at least the number 2 behind Komet last week. Still had 4 targets. This one a bit more of a desperation play for us, but still 4th most dropped, so he could be available, certainly could be available in your league if you are in need of the help, because I think there's a pretty talented kid there, and I think that offense has some decent matchups, I guess, the rest of the way anyway, even if it can be a little bit unpredictable at times, we will say. And then on defense, it is the Atlanta Falcons, the fourth most dropped defense in Yahoo this week. Great matchup with the Saints. And then after that, it's the Jets. So it's a defense you can feel all right about. A couple of very good matchups over the next couple of weeks. So this wouldn't just be a 1 week thing. You can trust that this defense, is going to be there for you for the next couple of weeks. Any others that might be jumping out to you of guys who could be available, let me know in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this after the fact. And hey, do me a favor, share this video with some of your mates. Maybe not in your league, because we want to keep it a secret, but some people who you know who play fantasy football who aren't in leagues that we're in. Give them this and help grow this channel, because really looking to do this as, I guess, full-time content creator here on YouTube, Twitch, and on Kick as well. Let's take a look now at the players who are the most available still coming out of the waiver wire period. Going to use the same, criteria that we use for waiver wires on Tuesday. 35% rostered or fewer in fantasy leagues. And at quarterback, it's Bryce Young. It's an if you're desperate move, but a pretty good matchup against the 49ers. And 400 yards last week. He's had some pretty good weeks and against some decent defenses too. It's not just a matchup dependent thing, although the matchup here certainly helps. So he would be the quarterback that I would be looking at if we missed out on our targets in the waiver wire period. At wide receiver, Tez Johnson, 33% rostered. Tough to only get 1 point out of that wild game. Still had 6 opportunities with 3 targets and 3 carries, and still has that big play potential. If you need something big, he could be your guy. Xavier Legette was another one that we targeted in waiver wires. But I do want to highlight Jaden Higgins, who was the one that we looked at in the waiver wire period. His rostered percentage on Yahoo only went up 1%. I like this guy. Only 18% rostered for the Texans. It's not the most difficult matchup in the world against Buffalo. At some point, you would like CJ Stroud to come back, probably Davis Mills on Thursday. But he's had 7 targets in 3 of the last 4 weeks, touchdowns in 2 of those games. So I think even after a bit of a disappointment against the Titans, Higgins can still be someone that can help out your roster the rest of the way. At running back, most of the running backs that we targeted in the waiver wire were still available, but the one that really wanted to look at was Bam Knight with Arizona. 18% rostered. Again, the backfield is a mess there, but even with different guys coming in, he has had 9 or more opportunities in 5 of the 6 games he has played this season, and now he's getting some more looks in tight at the goal line. Benson's clock has been started to come back. They have 3 weeks to make a decision on him, but DeMarcado is out already this week for the Arizona Cardinals. So I think a pretty good option there for Bam Knight to come in and do some work for Arizona. And then on a bye, but Chris Rodriguez with Washington, 15% rostered. He was the top guy last week for the Commanders. They have a tough matchup against Denver coming out of the bye, but then it's either neutral or good the rest of the way. So Rodriguez, I think, could be one of those guys who could be a very productive member of some fantasy football playoff teams en route to a potential championship. At tight end, there wasn't a whole lot there, which is, I think, an evergreen statement for the entirety of the position. But I still think there could be something with Mason Taylor, 20% rostered. Tough matchups with Baltimore and Atlanta. Both of them are in the bottom 10 for giving up points to tight ends. But Tyrod Taylor should help out this offense and just raise all ships out there. And then you close the year with 3 of the 9 defenses that have given up the most points to tight ends this season. So I think Taylor has a pretty good opportunity to help you out again down the stretch. And then 2 defenses that we are looking at. The one that we brought up in the waiver wire portion actually became more available. It's the Indianapolis Colts at 32% rostered. I didn't think, again, that I would be giving out a team facing Patrick Mahomes, but that offense just hasn't impressed, and they haven't looked scary, and this Colts defense can be pretty good. So I think that is one that you can trust. And then, in what will be the only time I suggest this season, I think you can go with the Raiders at 18% rostered against Cleveland. If you were here pre-live show on the stream, I did the segment on Shedeur Sanders. If not, that's going to be available on YouTube here in just a little bit. The kid's not ready to be a starter. And I talked about why that shouldn't surprise people, but he's not ready to be a starter. This Raiders defense isn't good, but having your first career NFL start with staring down the barrel of a Max Crosby, it's not a fun way to do it. So I think there's an opportunity for the Raiders defense to come up with a couple of big plays here this week. So those are some of the options that I would look at if we didn't get who we wanted in the waiver wire period. If we're looking for a rebound, these are the ones that you can certainly attack that with. In the chat, Toxic, has PK talked about the Grey Cup yet? Just so I can leave and come back after he's done talking about it. That'll come up in a little bit, Toxic. We haven't fully gotten to that one yet. Although, again, after the jokes that were made earlier, I think the Riders might be number one in a power rankings. Just going to say. Yeah, more fantasy football talk to come here in just a second as well. So make sure you get your questions in. If you're watching live, I'll bounce back to this anytime you want. And we'll finish up what we're talking about at the moment, but then get to whatever questions that you want. So throw those in the live chat or put it in the comments below if you're watching this after. If you're listening in podcast form, just get at me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein. From the live chat, we had the question here. It's okay to laugh. Given injuries, who is the cuff for Javonte? Is it Blue or is it Davis? Well, let's talk about it. Let's figure out who we could handcuff Javonte Williams with if as we head down the stretch here. So we are looking to handcuff Javonte Williams. This one coming from the YouTube chat with It's Okay to Laugh -1. Again, given injuries, who is the cuff to Javonte? Is it Blue or is it Davis? So we are talking about potential of Malik Davis coming in. He's had 7 carries this season. All coming in the last 3 weeks. 2 against Denver, 1 against Arizona, and then 4 against the Raiders on Monday Night Football. Sorry, had another web page open, and that makes everything, makes everything laggy. I still think it's Blue, to be honest with you. It's okay to laugh. This is one, too, where I think the best handcuff is just getting the best running back available off the waiver wire. And we talked about it in the previous segment there. Like Bam Knight, I understand that Benson's coming back, but Bam Knight would be an all right backup. Chris Rodriguez, I think, would be a good option to kind of fill in as just having that backup there. Maybe even a Vidal. Take a look at the fantasy status or the injury status. Sorry. But this is one where I understand wanting to have that backup in place and wanting to have that handcuff there, but I don't think this is going to be like what it would be with Blake Corum with the Rams or with Bigsby with Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it would be a bit more of a spread it all around sort of a thing if Williams were to get hurt. Honestly, I think they've used Williams more than they wanted to. I think they wanted a bit of a two-headed monster with him and with Miles Sanders in that backfield. And it's just Sanders got hurt and Williams has been very good for them this year. And so you want to take advantage of that fantasy gold mine. And so I guess if I were to have to rank the Cowboys running backs, I would probably, I know that he just got put back on the practice roster. I think Davis would probably be the one. If Blue was going to be the guy, he would kind of be already. So, like, if we're doing a dynasty thing, who would I rather 5 years down the road? I think it would be Blue. But for this season, Blue still feels like he would be the gadgety type, get him in space sort of a thing, speed option, where Davis, I think they would view him as a little bit more of the down-to-down back. That would be my guess. It would certainly be a timeshare, though. You would not just be a straight line from Williams's volume over to Davis or someone like that. But I would probably rank it Davis and Blue. But of the guys who we talked about in the waiver wire rebound with Rodriguez, with Knight, and injuries pending with Vidal, I would want all of those guys over those Dallas backs. There are certain situations where you would want a handcuff in. I just don't think this is one of those. Another one would be Atlanta with Algier. That's one where you would want the backup. I don't think this is that. I think it would be a bit of a committee, and I don't think either guy is as good as Williams. So it would be a step back. I would rather go for just the more talented option that's available rather than, well, I have this guy's backup, so let's just put him in and see if we can take advantage of the volume that the Dallas Cowboys provide. So hopefully that answered your question. It's okay to laugh. And would love it if you could hit that subscribe button over on YouTube if you haven't done so already. But greatly appreciate that in the chat. If you want to get any fantasy football questions in at any time, even if we're talking wrestling, throw the fantasy football question in, and I will certainly get to that. I promise you that, as I can actually see what's happening in the chat today, which has been a nice change of pace. We are live. For those of you who are watching this after the fact, we go live multiple times a week on Couch Potato Diary. We had Rebecca VTuber on Kick asking how many times a week we go live. Generally 3. This week it's going to be 2. Today, and then the next one will be Thursday, November 20th. That's tomorrow. It is going to be a 10 a.m. Mountain Time start for the stream. Friday is my birthday, so I'm not going to do a stream on that day. So going to get everything in for Thursday and Friday podcasts on the Thursday stream at 10 a.m. So yes, normally try to stream 3 times a week here on all these platforms. That's the goal. Doesn't always happen, as the regulars here, I'm sure, will tell you. I'm sure Toxic spit out the coffee or whatever they were drinking when I said, oh yeah, 3 times a week. It's like, sometimes 3 times a month. So trying to be more consistent, I promise, but failing miserably at times. Very bad way of promoting that tomorrow, 10 a.m., we're doing the stream again here on Twitch, Kick, and on YouTube. Toxic, earmuffs. The Grey Cup is now in the books, and the team that was the most consistent all season long is the one that had the confetti fall on them as the season wrapped up. So, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, for the 5th time in franchise history, are Grey Cup champions. How did they do it? Let's break it down. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, for the 5th time in the over 100-year history of this franchise, are Grey Cup champions, with the victory sweating it out at the end over the Montreal Alouettes. Tall John in the Twitch chat, the big green machine, and that it was. But just what a game. Oh, what a game that the Riders, and what a season. You know, like, they finished first in the West for the first time in a long time to be able to host a playoff game, make their way to the Grey Cup for the first time since 2013, and end up getting that Grey Cup championship. A dream season. There's no other way to look at it. I had my frustrations at times. Absolutely, I did. But there is no doubting that this was a dream year for the Saskatchewan Roughriders and for Saskatchewan Roughrider fans. Like, frustrations aside, this was really cool, watching how this season kind of progressed. And it wasn't always easy, dealt with a lot of injuries, specifically at wide receiver, a couple on the offensive line. It's funny, they had a banged up, injured offensive line, and then 3 guys on the offensive line were all-stars. So, yin and yang on there. And then you look at the receiver room. Sam Emilus, we'll talk about in a second, out for a lot of the year. Bain, who was their best receiver last year, out for basically the entirety of the season. And Schaefer Baker didn't come back in until very late in the year as well. So there was a lot that went into this one. And Saskatchewan was just able to tread their way through the whole way. And I think it starts with Corey Mace. I'm not going to break down a ton of this game because, you know, a lot of breaking down games is getting ready for the next one. And there obviously isn't that. And in the CFL, there is so much turnover. Obviously, some big moments here, but just kind of want to go bigger picture with this one for Saskatchewan. And it's Corey Mace, who was the exact right coach at the exact right time for this franchise. If you go back in the Couch Potato archives on youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary, you will certainly see a frustrated Peter Klein talking about this Rough Riders organization. I had said that they lost touch with the fan base. I think that started, honestly, way back with Chris Jones. Honestly, maybe even with Chamberlain a little bit. But when Jones came in and out goes Chick and out goes Dressler and these fan favorites, and no, we're going to do it our way. And then they get busted on the pre-practice squad stuff and everything like that. It kind of felt like Rider fans were being taken for granted. And this wasn't the way that Rider fans wanted to go about doing things. And so it felt like there was, I mean, obviously it's always a passionate fan base. There's no denying that. But it did feel like there was a bit of a growing gap between the fan base and the team. And I don't think Craig Dickinson did a whole lot to change that either way. Like, I don't know if he embraced everything that goes along with that, but I don't think that he ignored it either. But Corey Mace, who has played in Saskatchewan before as a visiting player and knows what that passionate fan base can be about, also is very aware of these types of fan bases, having played in Buffalo with the Bills for a heartbeat. So he kind of understood what that connection meant, and he brought it in. And I have, as a Rider fan, obviously covered the team this year with 3 down, but as a Rider fan, I haven't felt that connection with the team the way that it was this season for a really long time. And I think that's Corey Mace reestablishing that relationship. And it paid off. West Final, we talked about it. That crowd was there, and that crowd helped get a couple of penalties and helped create a winning atmosphere for Saskatchewan. But Corey Mace really brought back what it meant to be a Rough Rider. And then you could see in the football game, it was Corey Mace football. It was dominance on the defense, very good front seven, not giving up. A couple big plays obviously happened, but not giving up too many big plays. And it was rallying to the football. I said on, I was on 960 this week, there was a hitch pass. I'm pretty sure it was Rambo who caught it over on the left side. And it looked either like a GIF, a zombie show, or a video game where people just spawning. He ducks one, and there's just like 3 others coming in, just overwhelming all over him. And they got to him eventually. But this team rallied the football really, really well. And then it's just strong, mistake-free football on the offensive side. Corey Mace bringing that new winning attitude to Saskatchewan. And now he's got a pretty good proof of concept with a Grey Cup championship out in Regina. And again, how do you not feel good for him? How do you not feel good for Trevor Harris? What a moment for him to not only get his first Grey Cup as a starter, but in record-breaking fashion, going out and setting the all-time completion percentage record. That's special. That is special, and that is really difficult to do. So for him to have that kind of a performance, very, very good. Love to see that from him. And as far as the game goes, I said on 960 this week, you could see it took him a little bit to get into it because Montreal was disguising their blitzes really well. And in that, I'm saying they were showing blitz and then never blitzing. And so Harris, you could see he would have an open pocket. It would be clean, but that clock's ticking. Because, well, I saw blitz here and I saw blitz here, but now I'm seeing guys out there. So do they just have 30 dudes out here? What are we doing? And that leads to a check down over to the left side where AJ Ouellette is standing there, but Ento is breaking on it and should still be running with the football for an interception that I think completely changes how that game is played. But once he kind of figured out what they were doing and what they weren't doing, he really got into a rhythm. And at that point, he's really difficult to stop. Like, just some absolute dots of throws down the field. My wife must have been just sick of me by the end, where like she was in the room. To say she was watching might be an overstatement, but she was in the room where it happened. And she was watching TikToks where it was like, ooh, look at this throw. Look at this throw. Like, I should have done a live stream, although whatever. But because I just like, he had 2 or 3 throws a drive where it was like, I need to express to you how difficult that is for him to do that at 39. How crazy it is that he is just like tight windowing these things. Just some great throws from him. And again, the quarterback that they needed. And again, I go back and I'm sure there are receipts where I said when they brought in Harris, it's like, this is not a championship winning move. But they needed some stability. Coming off of Dickinson, he might have even been there for year 1 of Dickinson. I think he was actually. But Fajardo's gone. They're watching Grey Cups where their 2 starting quarterbacks are playing each other in the Grey Cup game. And it's not great. And there are a lot of problems on that football team at that time. So you bring in the safe quarterback just so that you know that's taken care of. And now you can properly evaluate what you have on the offensive line, and you can properly evaluate what you have in the receiver room. And then once they get good again, then you go out and get your Grey Cup winning quarterback. That's kind of the mentality I had. They had it all along as Trevor Harris finally gets that elusive Grey Cup ring. And look, if he comes back, this team could very easily do this again next year, given the talent that they have all over the football field. And that includes Samuel Emelis, who had a star-making night. 2 playoff games for him this year, both of them over 100 yards, around 10 catches, I think, for both of them. We talk about McInnes, we talk about Philpott. I think Emilus has worked his way into that conversation as one of the best receivers in the Canadian Football League as he comes up with just another dominant evening for Saskatchewan. And not just like big play down the field or whatever, but a pass underneath, makes the catch, makes the run for the first down, thanks to some good blocking down the field as well. Speaking of Corey Mace bringing that winning mentality to Saskatchewan, seeing the receivers blocking downfield, Ajo stole a man's soul with one of his blocks. So just excellence all around. And Emilus, I think this was kind of his Philpott from a couple of years ago move, and he was able to break through in a big-time way. Nailed that pick, actually, on the 3-down when they did the picks and predictions thing that all the writers do. I had Emilus as the most outstanding Canadian, so pretty happy that I hit that one. We'll talk about what the biggest factor was, I think, for Saskatchewan's championship road in just a moment. But if you like what you are consuming right now and want to bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go, just search Couch Potato Diary on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. The defense was fantastic. All season long, the defense was fantastic, but specifically in this game, I thought they were really good. I would have liked a bit more of a pass rush early on a banged-up Davis Alexander, but they knew what he was, they knew what he wasn't in this game, and they were going to, if they were going to lose this game, they were going to lose it to Davis Alexander, pocket passer. So they didn't give him a whole lot for passing lanes. They get an interception on the first drive of the game, really good play on the ball by Sales, but the pass rush kept a lot of Alexander in front of them all game and stepped up, gave up a little more in the run game than I thought they were going to, but stepped up in some big time ways. And then the defensive backs, with a lot of pressure on them, because you know the quarterback's going to have some time, they made the big plays when they needed to as well. And they were the tone setters all season. Obviously, on the other side, it's heartbreak for Montreal. Like having Alexander have that injury, it just sucks. It really does. And I know I said in my 3-down piece, getting ahead of it, but the Riders got lucky in this spot. I disagree. I heard that a lot in 2007 when they were going to face Winnipeg in the Grey Cup, but Kevin Glenn got hurt on like the last play of the East Final, and so Saskatchewan played Ryan Dinwiddie in that game, and if you played anyone else, you would have lost. Like, well, they may have played better too, who knows? But for this one, Saskatchewan was able to take advantage of the situation by getting to the Grey Cup. So there's no luck in that, but it still sucks for Montreal. Like, it's bad luck for them that your quarterback gets hurt. I still think he's one of the more electric talents that this league has. I think he against Rourke is going to be a whole lot of fun for a really long time. I think some Saskatchewan fans are hoping that it is he versus Rourke, as the Riders have the rights to the younger one who's dealing with an injury right now and trying to make that NFL dream happen. But it's too bad that you don't have your best player at his best in the biggest game. But at the end of the day, it's just too many mistakes. Underthrown ball on a deep pass. Maybe if he's got both legs, that doesn't get underthrown to Philpott, but it's still a really good play by Sales. And the Patterson at the goal line, trying to get that across, fumbles it. Saskatchewan gets it, and then the big moment for Sask is that it landed on the goal line, so they were able to bring it out to the 30. Massive moment for the Riders in that game. But it's just a couple mistakes for Montreal that Saskatchewan didn't make. The Riders didn't beat themselves. Montreal kind of did, and that ends up what ends up costing them in this spot. But I also want to say, I do wonder if this means teams get a little more creative at the goal line now. Like Tommy Stevens, he can do that quarterback sneak thing and just drive it through. But just because they have to give you a yard in the CFL doesn't mean that you just have to do the quarterback sneak. I get it's like right there, and so you just want to drive it, and then Tough Man Football says, well, we should be able to get a yard, so maybe we get 2 yards on it. You have very talented running backs up and down this league. You have very talented receivers up and down this league. Do something else. I don't like it that the innovation is, he went to the right. I feel like there needs to be a little bit more creativity. Doesn't mean you can't just entirely abandon that play, but I feel like we need a little bit more from that particular spot on the field, given that you have the huge end zones to work with in the CFL. But overall, fantastic playoff comes to a close in Canadian football. Hopefully the CFL can build on this momentum now. I know there's some people who have some concerns going into the next couple of years with the changes that are happening. And not a great time to be selling change when you have a product like that to close out the playoffs where every game came down to the last play, basically. It was a fun postseason, pretty good year, and hopefully the CFL can build on that now. And again, I want to give a shout out to anyone who read all my stuff over at 3 Down. My Grey Cup thoughts are there from the rider's perspective. Go check that out over at 3 Down Nation. This was an unbelievable season for me personally, to be able to go on this Grey Cup journey with everyone while covering the team that I grew up cheering for. Was really, really cool. So thanks to everyone who's been watching on here and reading all that stuff over on 3 Down as we get ready now for the off season. All right. Couple notes here from Tall John. It was nice to see the Grey Cup played not in a snowstorm or deep cold. Yeah, for Winnipeg in November, pretty mild conditions. Pretty mild. We're seeing it here in Calgary. Like the snow is starting to fall now. Moving it up a week gives you a little bit of that. And now I think they're going to move it up another week when it's going to be in Saskatchewan in 27. So maybe we don't deal with as many of those snow bowls going forward because the schedule moves up a little bit. But yes, it was nice that the elements didn't really play a factor in all of that. Also, just another quick aside, the halftime show, I thought Machine Gun Kelly was fine. But again, halftime show's not for me. The halftime show is exactly for someone who, oh yeah, Grey Cups this week. Who's playing? Montreal, Saskatchewan? Okay. Who's halftime? Oh, MGK? Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll watch. That is the reaction you're hoping to get. You quite frankly, you don't want the football fans to be like, oh yeah, this is our dude. This is to bring more eyeballs in. And that's what the halftime show is supposed to be. They've already got you for the football. It would be weird if they played 30 minutes of football and then halftime they go, all right, and now something for the football fans. It's for the wider audience. It's supposed to get in a lot of people. And for that league specifically, it's supposed to be younger. So MGK kind of checks a few boxes there. So just had to kind of get that one off of my chest. Follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Get updates on the show and just what I am thinking, and extra content from Couch Potato Diary. In the chat again over on Twitch, Tall John. Side question: will you have a segment about Team Canada men's hockey in a future cast / talk Olympic hockey in general? Absolutely, Tall John. We'll be doing a lot of Olympic hockey stuff really when it's ramping up, but I am kind of hoping now. Honestly, was thinking about it for next week because I am going to be on 960, who you love. I'm going to be on 960 for 4 days next week. So looking to get some of that stuff in. So it may end up being just podcast only things, but I will be doing quite a bit of Olympic hockey thoughts and getting the roster ready and all of that as we approach what should be a really, really fun tournament coming up in the early part of 2026. So yes, Tall John, that hockey part will be covered. And we'll be doing more hockey here as the year goes on. There's just been a lot with the Blue Jays run, and then I'm over at 960, and quite frankly, with this group, there ain't a lot to talk about right now, so I have been avoiding it almost by choice, because we've already done twice. Wow, the Flames suck. Is this rock bottom? Oh, it's rock bottomer. Well, now it's this one. And so that kind of bores me after a while, so we will be doing more hockey. It is just because Grey Cup and Blue Jays and all of that, plus the NFL season, it has all just kind of piled onto it. But yes, the hockey stuff, and I want to talk a lot of basketball. Loving this Raptors team right now. So all that will kind of loop back in here as the year winds down in 2025 into the early part of 2026. Keep the chats coming. Whatever you guys want to talk about in the chat, I will be happy to do so with you guys here today. This has been a whole lot of fun chatting with everyone so far. Let's move into the world of face punching now. UFC 322 had a couple of very intriguing fights at the top of the card. That was going into it. As soon as the fight started, though, we kind of recognized what was happening. Let's break down an interesting, albeit at the end of the night predictable, UFC 322. UFC 322, one of the final UFC pay-per-views, I was going to say of the year, but maybe just ever, as the new TV deal in the States gets rid of that model down there. Anyway, haven't heard a whole lot from Canada, but either way, that story for another day. UFC 322, this was a card I was interested in. We did this in the Fight Night First Look, where you kind of had a similar storyline in both, where there is a champion from one weight class moving up into the next one, hoping for a next level of greatness. And we saw greatness on display. And it's kind of interesting because the two fights actually did kind of mirror each other, although it was the opposite end of that contender spectrum, right? Because in the one, Islam Makhachev moves up from 155 pounds and spends exactly 25 minutes whooping the ass of Jack Della Maddalena, and now a two-division champion, although, again, the 155-pound belt was dropped, but still, he is a champion now in a couple of weight classes. Meanwhile, in the other one, it was Zhang Weili moving up, daring to be great, and she got dominated for 25 minutes by Valentina Shevchenko. Literally the only time that Shevchenko wasn't winning the fight was when the round started, and they had to be separated based on the unified rules of mixed martial arts. So there wasn't a whole lot of drama in these fights, and you come out of it with just a great appreciation for the dominance of the two champions now, with Makhachev and with Valentina Shevchenko. There wasn't a whole lot there, either for Jack Della Maddalena or for Zhang Weili. Just complete control there for both champions, Makhachev and Shevchenko. Just for those watching live in the chat, Nick Turman 9101 saying, I want your opinion on a trade I just made in Dynasty. I will get that to you in a second. Absolutely. Whatever you want to talk about in the chat, I will do it. We just want to finish up talking about what we are talking about here first, and that is the absolute dominance of Makhachev and Shevchenko. I think with both fighters, you can make a pretty compelling argument that they are one of the best fighters of their era. Obviously, with Shevchenko, it's her and Nunes, right? Like, for this, I guess, kind of post Joanna run that she had, and even like the tail end of that, they kind of cross over. But in this kind of next era, it's those two fighters. And now that, I mean, Nunes is coming back against Kayla Harrison, but now that Nunes has been gone for a couple of years, this has been Valentina's show. Even with the loss to Grasso, this has been Valentina's show. And Zhang Weili, really good fighter, just not on that level. And we're getting to this point now with Shevchenko, where George St. Pierre was kind of at the back part of his prime. GSP lost to Matt Serra and came back UFC 82, Montreal? 83, one of those two. And completely dominated Matt Serra. And then a great win against BJ Penn. But as the wins started to pile up, GSP was very aware of his place in history and what the wins meant and what being champion meant to him and his legacy and just the sport in general. And he started to fight knowing that. And so you got a lot less risk taking. You also just understand, well, that sucked. Don't want to do that again. But I'm better than everyone at this thing. And so you wouldn't get George Rush St. Pierre. It was a lot of the jabs and takedowns and then excellent top control. And that was it. And now you're kind of seeing that with Shevchenko here, where she has the loss to Grasso. And it was an aspect of her game that Grasso had obviously drilled, had obviously learned, and saw one opening and took advantage. And Shevchenko, the light bulb kind of goes on. It's like, well, that sucks. Don't want to do that again. And so she has now recognized where she's better at than everyone else, and she's just going to go with that. So you don't get a lot of the drama. You don't get a lot of varied attacks from Shevchenko. She recognizes she can, for the most part, in this division, because of her strength and technique and everything, she can go in, get a takedown, hold him there, and that's the win. She is also very good on the feet as well. And I think she is at a point where she recognizes she is good enough that she can do a couple of things, and that's going to keep her safe, and that's going to keep her victorious. And for her, that is going to keep her champion, which is the name of the game, right? Like, we get frustrated with some of these men and women sometimes. For them, winning is what you need to do. Because in this sport, when you don't, it hurts a lot. So I don't necessarily blame them for it, but it doesn't necessarily lead to the most dynamic fights, because Shevchenko is just well aware she's better than everyone right now, and specifically in the things that she does in that cage. Makhachev, I think there's a little bit more resistance coming now that he's up at 170 pounds. But for Shevchenko, I don't know if there's a whole lot that is really lighting that fire at this time for the women's champion there. In terms of the people on the wrong side of these fights, this is a really tough spot now for Jack Della Maddalena. Not a lot of people picked him to win the belt. As soon as he won it, everyone was assuming that Makhachev was going to move up to 170 pounds because they felt like he was the easy target. Makhachev moves up to 170 pounds and makes JDM look like the easy target. So, excellent work from Makhachev, but this sets Della Maddalena back, I think, quite a bit. Honestly, it is like Dricus du Plessis from a few fights ago, where he loses to Khamzat Chimaev, and he loses in such a way that no one thinks he is a valuable title contender right now, so he has to earn his way back. It's the same thing here now with Della Maddalena. He has to earn his way back now into the championship good graces. Zhang Weili has beat some of the best fighters in her era, but again, this wasn't close. Both of these fights, like the Makhachev one, I was very confident in. The Shevchenko one, I was pretty confident, but there was a little bit of I don't know. The second those fights started, it was, okay, yeah, no, we know how this is going. And that's tough because Weili is a really, really good fighter. I love that she dared to be great, but she obviously just was not on the level of Shevchenko. So I think you have to head back down now. And it's unfortunate that someone goes for greatness and it could negatively affect their legacy, but I think it kind of does. This is going to be one that I think sticks with Zhang Weili, and she's going to have to go back now and prove how good she is back at strawweight with a couple of new challengers coming out of the Mackenzie Dern Championship victory. So those are my thoughts. UFC 322. Have I been unfair to either JDM or Zhang Weili? And what do you think is next for the two new champions? Let me know either in the chat or in the comment section below. We have a bunch of fantasy football chats now coming in over on the YouTube side. So let's get into a couple of questions here from Nick Turman and from Big Bills Guy 2017. Well, let's talk a little bit more football here on Couch Potato Diary. The fantasy football trade deadline is coming up. The fantasy football playoffs are right around the corner, so roster decisions all the more important. Let's help out a couple people in the chat with the decisions that they have. It is Nick Turman first in the chat who asked, want your opinion on a trade I just made in Dynasty. 12-team Dynasty, first year, tight end premium, 2 quarterback superflex. My wide receivers are absolutely my weakest link. Lays out the list ahead of us. We don't need to go through every single player for all of you. I guess we're just looking. I don't know what the trade was. Sorry, Nick Turman. I guess we're just looking at the roster right now. Looking at the again, tight end premium, we got Hurts, Helm, Strange, and Barner, plus Lions backup tight end. Just to flex pending bye weeks, etc. Fine group. I like Barner quite a bit, and I get that the volume hasn't always been there, but on the weeks where it's good, it's really good for him, and you can feel pretty good about that. Love the two defenses with Seattle's defense and the Bucks as well. First place at 8-2, most points scored. I can see why. At quarterback, Daniel Jones, Josh Allen, and Caleb Williams. So 2 QB Superflex. We're feeling very good about what we can kind of roll through with that on a week in, week out basis. Oh, we have the trade down here at the bottom. Sorry, my bad. Okay, I traded Ladd at next year's first. Got this pick through a trade that I no longer have the first, but the trade was with the last place team for Justin Jefferson and next year's second round pick. Should be first pick of the second round, and Kincaid for tight end, sorry. So yeah, I like this trade a lot. I understand like giving up first round picks can be a little bit scary, but you're not going to get anyone who is Justin Jefferson with any of those picks. And given that the first round picks that you're getting there are kind of middle rounds, if we're looking at those as a kind of a rookie draft or players who could be left, there just isn't going to be those that value. And so when you have a team that is 8-2 in first place, you have the guys that you have. The quarterbacks, we're feeling pretty good. Running back with Achane, CMC, Henderson, Bill, Isaiah Davis, Braylon Allen. So we fall off a little bit at the end. But still, there's a lot of talent here. That's when you go for it. That is when first round picks, whatever. It's not the strongest rookie class. So let's just go out, try to get ourselves in the best spot possible. And making a trade for a second round pick with the last place team, that's going to get you, that's basically a first round pick just at the very end. That is probably the 13th pick. So yes, I I think you should feel really good about that one, Nick Term. And I think when we're looking at the strategy of being in first place and going for it, if you're the first place team, you shouldn't be drafting in the first round next year. We should be going for championships. We should be going for titles. And that's what we're doing here. And to get the added bonus of basically an extra first round pick at the end of it anyway, very, very smart move there for you, Nick Terman. Toxic in the chat. For the Vampire Leagues, you can't steal any more players now, right? That is correct. Yes, I have gone through everybody, and so now the stealing is over. So yes, I was only able to steal Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and Ibuka. I think there was another one in there too that I was able to get. But yes, no, that is all I can get now at this point. So you're all lucky that you survive. The ones who did that you survived, but. I'm feeling really good about my team. I'm just going to put that out there. But a battle of the Titans for sure this week in the Vampire League. We have another one here, like I said, from Bill's Guy 2017. So let's keep the fantasy football questions coming here on Couch Potato Diary. Big Bill's Guy 2017. Hey, bro, looking for opinions. One slot out of a playoff spot. PPR, need a win. I've got 2 stacks of 3 right now. Is this putting too many eggs in one basket? So, I see what we're talking about here. So we have JSN, Barnes, and Myers, and then May, Diggs, and defense special team. Is that putting too much eggs into one basket? Rest of the team is JT, Olave, Chase Brown, DJ Moore, Pacheco, Falcons defense. Then the rest either hurt or on a bye. I see where we have some concern there. I don't think it's too many eggs in one basket. If you had 2 stacks of the Raiders and the Browns, then we'd have a conversation here, Big Bills Guy. But for this one, like JSN has been a game breaker this year. Barner, it hasn't been perfect all the time, but it works, like he's been okay. And then May, Diggs, and the defense special teams, like the defense hasn't fully transitioned into that dominant defense that I thought the Patriots would, but it's a good defense. May and Diggs, like Diggs isn't my first choice, but to have that with Drake May, totally fine. So I don't think we really need to change a whole lot here. And the rest of the team is solid. So I wouldn't be moving on just to move on. If someone gave you a good offer for a Diggs or something like that, then fine. But I wouldn't be trying to trade any of those players or drop anyone just because a couple of them happen to be on the same team. I'm in a league right now. Now it's not going to come up this week, but I'm in a league right now where with my brother-in-law, where we're co-owning a squad, and we have Bijan Robinson and Drake London. Yes, in theory, too many eggs, one basket. On the other hand, 2 elite level fantasy options, and we're in first place. That's what you get. Like, I just get as many good players as you can, and if they happen to be on similar teams, fine, I guess, for the most part. Like, there is obviously the concern about the Patriots. Your championship week, New England plays in a snow globe, and all of a sudden everything is kind of hooped. But looking at the Pats schedule the rest of the way, they have the Bengals this week, we're feeling good. Giants next week, we're feeling all right. Week 14 bye kind of sucks. Especially for Big Bills Guy here, trying to get into that playoff spot, 1 point out in a PPR league. To lose Drake May in that spot kind of sucks. I'll give you that one. But then after that, you got the Bills, so you can run on anyway, and you can put up some points against that defense. Ravens, will see about health, but right now that defense doesn't scare you. And then the Jets in week 17, which should be your fantasy championship. So the Patriots are in a good spot for that. So I don't think you need to adjust too much here at all, Big Bills Guy. I mean, we need to ethically talk about having the handle of Big Bills Guy 2017 and relying on 2 New England Patriots to get us home. We can talk about how that is a moral issue. But from a fantasy standpoint, no, we're sitting pretty there. Dude, I think you're going to be all right getting into the fantasy football playoffs for this season. If you want more fantasy football advice and we're watching live, throw it in the chat. I'm going to pivot away again from fantasy football in a second. Oh, maybe not. We have another question coming in. But get the questions in, whether it's in the chat or if you're watching after the fact. Throw them in the comments. Try to get to as many as I can in there as well. Or you can get at me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein if you are listening in podcast form, which, by the way, for those of you who are new here, we do a podcast. That one ends up being about daily over on Spotify and Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Just search Couch Potato Diary. Nick Turman in the chat. Awesome, thank you. In my opinion, JJ has been more consistent than Ladd, and JJ is the clear one. I think I win the trade, given JJ has higher upside. Absolutely 100%. I agree entirely with you on that one there. Like, Jefferson's the most talented receiver in the National Football League. That is my opinion. Vlad McConkey is good, but A, a lot of mouths to feed. B, quarterback who doesn't have time to feed him because he is getting the bejesus beaten out of him with that offensive line. So yeah, JJ over, I didn't really address that part. JJ over Ladd is a win. And it is certainly worth what is essentially moving back in the draft 5-6 spots for. Like that value checks out. Also, the Isaiah Davis, Braylon Allen was simply a play for next year, hoping that Breece Hall gets traded. Valid point. Very valid point. Big Bills guy. Complete moral issue. I'm quite ashamed, LMAO. Thanks for the opinions, brother. Subbed. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I appreciate that greatly. Thank you so much for the sub there. Big Bills guy, 2017. Yeah, the moral issue. It's a lot to work through. See, that's where being a Raider fan is great because like the Raiders have rivals. They don't view us as rivals. So what? I mean, oh no. A guy did well against the Raiders? I am stunned. This has never happened in the 30 years I've cheered for this football team. So you avoid this kind of drama. Also makes it easy on Sunday because I don't got to watch the Raider game. I can watch the good teams play. So I can just watch my players. So I would recommend that if anyone out there deciding to pick a team, pick a shitty one. And then you can just focus on the good teams and the fantasy football stuff. And maybe you luck into some fun every now and then. Life advice, more so than anything else. On there, not just fantasy football advice. That's life advice for the kids on a Wednesday here in November. And yes, Nick Turman, absolutely, you are most welcome. We have another one here in the chat. This one from Firebros 2675. So let's talk about receivers we should be worried about. Mistimed that a little bit. So, in the chat on YouTube, Firebros 2675. Should I feel panicked about Devonta Smith and Tet McMillan? I can understand the Smith one because that offense is a bit of a train wreck at this time. And if there's going to be a squeaky wheel who ends up getting it, it's going to be AJ Brown. So I can absolutely see where the frustration could come from, where the concern could come from with Devonta Smith. At this point, I don't know what we can do with that, though, because he is a talented receiver, but if you're seeing the issues, everyone's seeing the issues. So if you can still trade, I don't think you're trading for him or trading him away, and we're not dropping the guy at this point. So week in, week out basis, we can have some trouble figuring out if we want him in the lineup or if we don't want him in the lineup. But from an actual like actionable standpoint, I don't think we can get rid of him. And I don't think that there's going to be someone that's going to give you appropriate value back for this player who can have a couple of boom games here for the Eagles. Just pulling up his stats here really quick, pulling up the old game log. Just 1 point last week against Detroit. But, I mean, after that, 14 against the Packers, bye week, 11 against the Giants, 28 against the Vikings, 6 against the Giants, 15 against the Broncos, 3 against the Bucks, 16 against the Rams. There's some touchdown dependency in there, obviously. But, like, targets-wise, he had a game with 2, a game with 3. Other than that, 5, 7, 9, 11, 5, 10, 9, 6. Maybe it's not as bad for Devonta Smith as I thought. So we are concerned, but we are holding. And honestly, looking at it now, just kind of talking it through with us here today, Fire Bros, for the rest of the class, I think, don't know why my camera just tried to pop on. For the rest of the class, I think there is maybe a buy low opportunity here because I think Smith is good. I have worries about the offense, obviously. I do. We just talked about it. And AJ Brown being the squeaky wheel there, all those concerns apply. The stats are admittedly better than I thought they were. And you look at the rest of the season, this week Dallas, next week Chicago. Week after that, they have the Chargers, who have been good against receivers this year, but that defense is starting to get beat up because they're on the field so much because the offense can't do a darn thing. After that, in the fantasy playoffs, they have Vegas, Washington, and Buffalo. Buffalo, not the plussest plus matchup, but Washington and Vegas are. So Devonta Smith, maybe a buy low out of all of this conversation. Because I do, you're not out of your mind to worry about this, Fire Bros 2675, going to do the Gen Z or Gen X whatever thing, and your feelings are valid, but I think better days are ahead, and it's not the big blowaway season that we wanted, but it is also not the disaster that sometimes it can feel like. On the Teteroa McMillan side of things, I don't think you have to be that worried at all. I think they have good matchup here with San Francisco, coming off of a big game against Atlanta and just a few very good performances. And you watch him on the field, and the kid's good at football. So I wouldn't be panicked at all. I unfortunately can't trade. My league is boring, so it's wire/drop. Yeah, I wouldn't be dropping anyone. And McMillan's great. Like McMillan, I would have no concerns there. So again, valid feelings on Smith, but I wouldn't necessarily overreact to that particular player at this time, because I think some pretty good days are ahead out there in Philadelphia for an offense that has been very, very frustrating here so far this season. We have another chat coming from the YouTube side of things, so let's keep that ball rolling. Nick Turman, one more time. Last question. With me having one open spot and Brian Robinson still there, should I add him for an emergency handcuff for CMC? We talked about handcuffs earlier on the Dallas situation. Dallas, we're not looking at the handcuff. This one I am. Brian Robinson can be a starting running back in this league and would be on several teams. Honestly, I think after seeing it for a season, he might be the starting running back on his old team in Washington. So for a team that everyone gets hurt on, with a player who gets hurt quite a bit, having that backup, I think that is one of the situations where having that handcuff actually is very valuable. I think that does make a lot of sense. I think that makes a whole lot of sense for you there as the CMC owner. Because we know Shanahan likes to go with one running back. We know what this offense can do. And we know what Brian Robinson can do. So that one, it makes sense, because that's a straight line. Like, it goes from, not talent-wise, but it goes from McCaffrey's opportunities to the opportunities of Robinson. Like, that's, yes. This is a long way of saying, yes, do that. Those are the handcuffs that you want to be getting. So again, just kind of top of the head here. Maybe this is a segment for later this week. But handcuffs that we want to be getting, I think you have to get Robinson for sure. The Bijan owner should have Tyler Algier. The Barkley owner, they should have Bigsby. The Kyron Williams owner, they should have Corum. I'm sure there are other ones as well. Raiders owner, definitely get Raheem Mostert. Maybe don't do that for Genty. But, and yeah, CMC Robinson, that's one that you absolutely get the handcuff for. I've said before, I think handcuffing can be, again, it's cuffing season, but handcuffing can be a little bit iffy when there are certain situations, like I said with the Raiders, like Ashton Genty, if he goes down, like, okay, Raheem Mostert's coming in one of the worst offenses in football. I don't think you're going to get a straight line value in that. We talked about it with Blue or Davis for Javonte Williams. They're going to split. Like, you're not going to get Williams's volume. Also, you're not getting Williams's talent. But there are certain situations where it makes sense, and this is absolutely one of them. Fire Bros coming back with calf injury on Tet 2 weeks ago was scary. Yes, like there's, I guess from an injury standpoint, that there could be a concern, but I also, everyone can get hurt in football, you know? And so I don't want to full panic button or anything, but like any player could get injured at any time. So if the only concern about a player is injuries, then that's every player in football. It's just one had one very recently. And so that's where the concern comes from with a Teteroa McMillan. But I still think the world of the football player. And if he can get back to anything resembling 100%, he's going to be pretty good for you down the stretch. So thank you guys for all of the questions. Like I said, keep the fantasy football questions coming. I'm going to pivot away from football for just a second here. But if you have any other questions, we will absolutely dive right back in. We talked about UFC 322 and the big performances that the two champions had Where does it put them in the rankings? Let's talk about it. We'll start on the men's side, where Islam Makhachev has been a dominant champion before. He had his number one spot taken away. Did he get it back? Let's talk about it. It is pound for pound rankings time coming out of UFC 322. Let's take a look at the updated rankings, shall we? So first of all, Jack Della Maddalena drops out of the pound for pound rankings after his title loss against Islam Makhachev. I think that JDM is a very solid fighter and a very talented one, but he didn't really have the resume to get into the top 10 anyway. He was kind of here because he was the champion, and 10 spots, there you should have the champions represented, at least most of them. And so I put him in. I don't think you can now, coming off of that loss. He just doesn't have the resume to crack the top 10. In at number 10, Magomed Ankalaev. Yes, losing to Pereira after a big victory against him, but he still has that win over him at a time where Pereira was one of the pound-for-pound greats. So you have to keep Ankalaev in there for a bit. At number 9, I have Max Holloway checking in. He comes in for JDM. Holloway perpetually toward the top of this and always in the top 10 pound for pound. Coming off of that win over Dustin Poirier, it gets him back into these conversations. The reason he's not higher is because of our number 8 fighter, Alex Volkanovski, who has had a couple of banana peels along the way, but is still one of the great fighters of all time. Getting that championship back at 145 pounds puts him at number 8. At 7, it is Pantoja, who is just dominant over everyone in his weight class. Would love to see, and could be seeing soon, a difficult challenge for him, but so far, he's beaten everyone that's been put in front of him. At 6, it is Pereira, the 205-pound champion. I think the world of the talent of this guy. A loss against Ankalaev kind of bumps him out of that elite level, but still, I think he should get a run at heavyweight. I think he should get a run at the heavyweight belt, and I'm a little disappointed he hasn't to this point, but we could be seeing a whole lot of fun from this guy soon in the resume. 2-division champion, elite level striker. He deserves to be up here. At 5, it's Tom Aspinall. A dud of a championship fight at UFC 321 with the eye injury situation, but can't take anything away from this guy. He has been knocking out the best of the best at heavyweight. Now the undisputed heavyweight champion, he comes in at 5. At 4, Khamzat Chimaev, just a dominant figure at 185 pounds, now with the championship. And so honestly, he probably should have been up here a while ago, but he's here now for a couple of editions of the pound for pound rankings and is probably going to stick around for a while. At 3, it is Merab Dvalishvili. I slept on this guy for a while. The talent, the pace, the cardio, the everything that he can put together, I think he is deserving of being a top 3 fighter in the pound for pound rankings. At 2, there is almost no other era where the resume that Ilia Topuria has put together would have him as the number 2 fighter. When you think about the fighters he has defeated and the dominance that he has shown in now 2 different weight classes, there aren't many times where someone who has that kind of a resume ends up at number 2 in the pound for pound rankings, but he has to, because the new number 1, once again, is Islam Makhachev, who has an elite level resume, beat Alex Volkanovski when they were 1 and 2 in the pound for pound rankings, and now a 2-division champion. You have to give him this number 1 spot. And I think if you did one of the classic tropes that people talk about with pound for pound rankings and you made everyone the same weight, I think it's Makhachev and Chimaev who are suplexing guys all over the place and winning those fights. I think Makhachev is that good, and that's why he is number 1 on the pound for pound rankings for me on the men's side in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. We'll get to the women's side in just a second. But first, hit that notification bell. I mean, like, subscribe, all of those things. And like while you're there, the bell's right there. Just put the mouse on it, click on it, so you know when all these videos come at you from Couch Potato Diary. So we talked about the men's side. What about the women's side? How do the pound for pound rankings change? Haven't updated these in a bit, so there's a little bit of moving and shaking going on. But Valentina Shevchenko, spoiler alert, still the best in the women's UFC rankings right now. But some moving around her. Where does the loss for Zhang Weili drop her in the rankings? Let's talk about it. UFC 322 established one thing. Valentina Shevchenko is really good. Let's get into the pound-for-pound rankings. At number 10, a new fighter in the rankings. It is Virna Jandiroba. She checks in over Rose Namajunas, who has a Hall of Fame resume, but a couple of stumbles as of late. Had her on the list for a while, but can't with Jandiroba, who earns a title opportunity against Mackenzie Dern. Loses that, but I still think deserves a spot here in the top 10. At 9, it's Tatiana Suarez. This is, again, projecting a bit of the talent. The resume, because of injuries and people avoiding, this has not been maybe a top 10 resume, but she's a top 10 talent, so I have to put her at number 9. At 8, it's Natalia Silva, who is certainly on the rise right now and has put together a few fantastic fights and is working her way up into title contention. At 7, Juliana Pena has lost 2 of her last 3 relatively convincingly. And the only reason she's on here at all is because she shocked the world with an Amanda Nunes win. Aside from that, I don't know if there's a whole lot. I'm obviously not the biggest fan of this particular fighter, and so she ends up at number 7. At 6, it's Erin Blanchfield. Her and Manon Fiorot at number 5 feel kind of similar in that they are both pretty high-level fighters. Both have some good wins, couple losses that you don't love, but a good resume that puts them in the back part of the top 10. At number 4, new on the list, is Mackenzie Dern, popping up in the top 10 for the first time after winning the strawweight championship, kind of reaching that potential that a lot of people had for her. It was a bit of a longer road than people thought it would be, but you look at the names that she's beaten now, and she's absolutely deserving to be on this list. Which means, at number 3, it's Zhang Weili, who doesn't move at all, even after getting beat up pretty bad by Valentina Shevchenko. Maybe a bit of hypocrisy because Dricus du Plessis fell out of the top 10 after Khamzat Chimaev dominated him in that way at 185 pounds. But for Zhang Weili, I can't drop her below Mackenzie Dern, who won the championship only because Zhang Weili dropped it. And I also don't want to drop her too far for losing to someone who coming into the fight was at number 1 in the pound-for-pound rankings. So she stays at number 3. At 2, it is Kayla Harrison, who has been deserving of that spot for a very long time. And now coming up with a monster fight against Amanda Nunes. But happy to see her getting the recognition she deserves in the UFC. And at number 1, it's Valentina Shevchenko. Another dominant performance against a highly ranked fighter. She is so clearly number 1 right now. When you look at the top 10 that we just went through, Jandiroba, Suarez, Silva, Pena, Blanchfield, Fiorot, Dern, Weili, and Harrison, and then Shevchenko at 1, the place where there is the biggest gap between one spot and the next, I think is probably between Shevchenko and Harrison at 1 and 2. She is that good. And those are the UFC pound-for-pound rankings on the women's side. If you have any disagreements, let me know in the chat if you're watching live, in the comments if you're watching after the fact, or on social media if you are listening to the podcast. We have a couple of more fantasy football questions in the chat that we are going to get to now as Fire Bros continues to ask a couple of things. I'm happy to chat some more fantasy football. Apologies. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Fire Bros. Just had some great insight there, too. Very, very disappointing that we missed out on that. But yeah, we are down the stretch run of the fantasy football season. So every decision so much more important as we go along. And so Firebro is asking, been talking to a lot of my fantasy friends, and they say, oh, stay with Caleb Williams. He's consistent against good teams and great against bad teams. My concern is the wide receiver talent and other YouTubers' advice. And so we're looking at Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott for the quarterback situation, since they are available in this league. I would want to look at the schedule. I think you are, again, fair in being worried about Caleb Williams. I felt like a Caleb Williams defender at the beginning part of the season. I thought there were some people being like, oh, nope, see, obviously doesn't have it. He sucks. Too bad. I thought there was a little bit more there when people were giving him credit, but now, or weren't giving him credit, sorry. But now that people aren't giving him credit, I think there's maybe a little more, or maybe a little less there than people are giving him credit for. So it's really interesting to see how that has shifted here. Just gonna move a little closer. Taking a look at the matchups for this week: Caleb Williams against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Brock Purdy for San Francisco. They get Carolina on Monday night, and Dak Prescott and the Cowboys face the Eagles. That one is the late afternoon game that everyone is going to be paying attention to, obviously, aside from Falcons and Saints. So, looking at those three quarterbacks, like Caleb has a decent matchup this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Purdy has the best matchup going up against Carolina, and Dak probably is the best of the three and has the best offense. And so with that, I would go with Dak Prescott. I get it's Philadelphia. It's a pretty good defense, but it hasn't been unstoppable this season, and Dallas has been able to put up some numbers on them this year already. So I think that there is an opportunity for Dak to have a pretty good week this week in that spot. I would go him over Caleb Williams. Absolutely, I would. And rest of the way, I would feel more comfortable with Dak as well. That defense maybe a little bit better coming off of the trade deadline, but still, you know they're going to be in just some wild shootouts the rest of the way. And the schedule, they have Eagles this week, Chiefs next week, which is a tough one on American Thanksgiving. After that, a Thursday night game against Detroit that they can, I think, again, points will be scored. We'll just put it that way. Vikings defense doesn't totally scare you. Chargers defense is wearing out a little bit, and the Commanders. So it's a decent spot for Dak the rest of the way. I don't mind going him over Caleb Williams. I have Joe Burrow on IR, which is insanely risky. I'm going to assume Joe Burrow isn't coming back. Now, I wouldn't drop him because it might be worth it to hold on to him, but given that the Bengals are falling further and further out of contention, I would be surprised if they bring Burrow back for a couple meaningless games at the end of the season. But right now, of those three quarterbacks we talked about, Purdy, Williams, or Dak, those are the ones that I would go with. And yeah, you're right, Fire Bros. Like, not sure he's coming back, but Flacco cooling down, in my opinion. He is. We talked about him in our waiver wire rebound. You'll be able to check that out either on the replay of this, or it'll be posted as its own segment a little bit later on today. But all right matchup for Flacco this week. But yeah, rest of the season, that there isn't a whole lot there. And you can see where they would want to bring Burrow in, but I feel like the season might be done. Just don't risk Burrow behind that offensive line any more than you have to. So looking at it for this week, I would go Dak. And I just want to check out the schedule here very, very quickly. Apologies, don't have these just off the top of the dome. But looking at the schedule the rest of the way, this would have to be an insanely good one for me to pick Williams over Dak. And it's all right. The Black Friday game against the Eagles after this game with the Steelers, then at Packers, home Browns, home Packers, at 49ers, and home Lions in week 18, which shouldn't be playing fantasy football then anyway. It's a good schedule for a quarterback. It's not a great one. It's not enough to offset me thinking that Dak is a better quarterback than Caleb Williams. And then for the 49ers, the schedule the rest of the way for them. Panthers this week, it's a good matchup. Browns next week, they still kind of scare me given how good that defense can be. They have a bye in week 14, which sucks. And then fantasy playoffs, it is the Titans, the Colts, and the Bears. So some weeks where Purdy can put up some numbers. I would still rank it this week and rest of season. Dak, Purdy, and then Caleb Williams at number 3. I think he's good, but I don't think he's great. And I do think that there is maybe a little bit of concern with some of the inconsistencies that are happening on the offensive side there in Chicago. So I would I think you are right to be a little bit like, there might be a little bit something off with this particular situation. I would like the Dak spot and I would like the Purdy spot just a little bit better there, in my opinion. Keep the fantasy football questions coming. Like I said, you can let me know in the chat whenever. I'm, again, shifting away, but we can talk about whatever you want. I promise I get back to it as soon as I see the chat and once I'm done talking about whatever it is that I am talking about. Fire Bros again. I've been keeping the Browns defense fierce competitors. Like Myles Garrett himself is a game wrecker, right? So that's a good defense and one that would concern me to go up against from a fantasy football standpoint. But it's also not one that if I have a clear advantage, I'm like, we're not, oh my gosh, Dak is facing the Browns, or I think it was Purdy. Purdy is facing the Browns. Well, I have to go out and pick up Tyler Shook then. Like, it's not to that level. It's just that, wish you weren't. Wished you weren't playing them this week. That's the kind of the level that they are at this particular moment. So again, keep those fantasy football questions coming in, or questions about anything else. If you want to talk about anything else in the chat, you can fire away and let me know. And whatever we're talking about, we'll pivot and get back to it once that segment is done. But we are going to move to the world of professional wrestling now, as the WWE said goodbye to John Cena's Monday Night Raw career. He has 2 shows left, 1 PLE for Survivor Series, and then a Saturday night's main event in December. So the final Raw for John Cena ends up being a pretty good one and a pretty noteworthy show for the WWE. Let's talk about it. All right, WWE Raw from Madison Square Garden. This was a pretty hyped up show. It was one that they built enough that I was like, okay, I need to watch this right away to make sure I don't miss anything. And overall, I feel pretty good about the viewing experience. Cena off the top was Cena. Like, he was great. You could tell, like, there was a little bit of like, this is one of the big goodbyes now, is Monday Night Raw. Obviously the SmackDown one, like, he debuted on SmackDown, but as he started going, he was the Raw guy. So I feel like he was, this was the first time where it felt like it hit him that this was a last, and a very important last for him. Dom came out. I thought it was good. Not perfect. Like, last week was basically perfect. This week, it was very, very good. And again, it shows how highly they view Dom. He brought it up on ESPN today that 3 of Cena's last 4 matches are going to feature Dominic Mysterio. The match in Boston for the IC title, the 6-man on Monday, and now the rematch for the IC title in San Diego at Survivor Series. Pretty impressive. What they're doing there with Dominic Mysterio. Overall, like, this match, this was a fun one. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good, like, fun house show type of a match. The part where Sheamus moves Cena into the middle for the 5-knuckle shuffle, excellent. We all, though, I think we can agree. Like, I don't like to speak for everyone. I don't love it when there's like, oh, wrestling fan here. This is what wrestling fans think. But we all wanted to see Cena try that 619, right? Like, when the 2 guys were in the ropes, like, I get Ray was coming this way, but we wanted Cena to do the other one, right? But aside from that, it was good. And then he hits the AA, and that's all she wrote there. I thought, again, it was really fun. Honestly, I think it gives Sheamus a bit of a boost. I think it's a bit of, like, putting him there with Cena. I heard some mocking when they were bringing up, like, Sheamus. He's had these classic matches with Cena. Like, yeah, no, I would have to go back. I'm pretty sure they didn't win Observer Match of the Year or anything like that. But it was still a rivalry. And Sheamus is still, I think, someone who is deserving of quite a bit of respect, given the career that he has had. And I think he's kind of been getting it in kind of the back part here. But just a reminder that this was one of the top guys in WWE for a while. And I think someone who could be heated up to get into that. So it was nice to see him on that stage kind of get that sort of recognition. So I thought it was good. Now, as far as what is left for Cena, I would be surprised if he lost to Dom. I know that there is a lot, like, Cena doesn't need the Intercontinental title, this, that, and the other thing, but I think you lose a bit of the meaning of this tournament and of Saturday night's main event if Cena loses in this match before. I think that takes a lot of the steam out of it, especially when you don't have Cena there for any of the shows in between to hype it back up and be like, no, this is my da 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 da. And so I think you lose a little bit of the steam by having Cena lose it to Dominic Mysterio in the penultimate match of John Cena's run. So I would imagine Cena gets the win there, but more Survivor Series coverage to come. In the Twitch chat, we have Toxic saying, I feel robbed for half of Cena's retirement tour. It was horribly done for half the year. That's fair. Like, there will be time to go over the entirety of it. That heel turn was such a moment. Such an amazing, amazing moment. And I still think there was something there that they could have done, even with The Rock not coming back, even with Travis Scott being a little flaky. I think there was a way to tie that in to make it a little bit more, I guess, acceptable for wrestling fans. But because it was just, no, all of you hated me. How dare you? And everything like that. And then we just flipped one day. There wasn't a come to Jesus moment. There wasn't a big whatever. It was just, yeah, I've been kind of a dick for a bit, so we're just going to change. I hated that. I hated that. Like, I liked the idea of trying something different with Cena. And I do think that if we had just done this, what we're doing now, if we would have done it for the whole year, I think you would have got the big pops. And you would have got the big, oh, this is fun. Oh, it's really cool. Oh, I can't believe it's ending. But I do think there would be part of us that's like, okay, we get it. We're fine. You know, like, it's like we're the kids and the grandma or great grandma is on the table and we can, you know what? You can let go now. We're okay. I think we'd be at that point right now with this. I think we'd be like, okay, we get it. You're retiring. Cool. I think with that, we kind of recognized how little time we had left with John Cena. And so the matches have felt very, very special. So I guess crazy like a fox on that. But you're right. Like, the first part was done post turn. The rest of it was done really, really bad. Thank you to Nader Dip in the Twitch for giving me the follow. Greatly appreciate that. Awesome. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard. But you're right. Like, yeah, done horribly. Absolutely. It was. Tall John in the chat. I think doing the Dom angle is good because it solves the issue of who does Cena face of the OGs toward the end. Like, how do you pick between some of the senior old school guys? Right. Like, it is unfortunate there isn't a mismatch because that was a pretty good one. But like going through the last time is now thing, Sheamus would have been a good one to kind of pick. I'm happy we got an AJ Styles one. That would have been one that felt missing at the end of the whole thing. And I get people want the Edge thing to happen. Whatever. But yeah, no, you're right. Like you are going to leave out some people, some places. So why not just like leave out all of them basically and go with some of the younger guys now? So I think it's a good kind of balance there as well. The one that I'm disappointed that we're not getting from the young guys is Cena against Braun Breaker. That one always felt to me like what they should have done with the next guy coming up, but the direction it appears they're going anyway, I think makes a lot of sense as well. We also get the War Games stuff here at the end of the night where we get two returns coming in for War Games where it is Brock Lesnar, eye roll, and Roman Reigns. Not the biggest surprise. We still got the big like, oh my gosh moment with Roman coming out and everything like that. So there's a little bit more story here. It was kind of feeling like, well, it's War Games time and these factions don't like each other kinda. So here we go. This adding Roman Reigns to it against Brock and Paul Heyman, I think ties in a lot of different things. Having Drew McIntyre in there ties Cody in pretty well. I do wish they would have set some of those things up before we just went War Games. Even though we all knew where it was going, I wish just from a storyline standpoint we could do that so that it didn't just feel like, well, 'tis the season. I never liked that, but it is what it is, I guess. Overall, like, you got a big moment with Roman's pop. The Brock stuff, we've been over it. I hate it. I feel like there are so many other performers who would have been better in this spot. I don't think Brock adds anything to this match. I don't. I really don't. I would have rather Obafemi get his opportunity or anybody else get a spot in this. I don't think the match benefits from Brock Lesnar. The story, I guess, maybe does a little bit, but you could have just as easily done it with some other guys. I just don't think it works. I really don't. I don't love it. I really don't. That being said, Tall John makes an excellent point over in the Twitch chat. The Vision War Games team is scary strong. If it was a real fight, I would not be putting my money on the Bloodline team. That's fair. When you look at just the humans that they have kind of amassed, they did 1 year I think it was 03? 03 or 04, sorry, where they did War Games teams, and I think it was Team Brock, and Brock picked all huge guys. Like they had, I think Matt Morgan was there, and Big Show, and like those type of dudes. And Cena picked all kind of smaller guys. Not that this has that feel, like we're not going to Roman Reigns 205 Live, but that this has a bit of that kind of a feel to it. And I always really appreciated that one. I do also wish that we had, I know we're already forcing one team storyline in, so we don't need another. I do kind of miss the old teams of five strive to survive thing. I wish we had a traditional match thrown in to this one as well. But again, understanding why they don't. One of the big moments of the night on Raw was Dolph Ziggler's return. And I just thought it was cool. I know we had talked about it before. I had talked myself into it being Chris Jericho, and Jericho throwing out some of the breadcrumbs that, well, TNA looks like the second biggest promotion in the world right now, and all of that. I was like, I nailed it, we got it. And so I was kind of expecting that. So admittedly, to not have him on either was a bit of a, but when that music hit for Dolph to come out, I was like, this is cool. Yeah, that's really good choice. Maybe not necessarily a feud that I think defines John Cena necessarily, but still a close enough tie that it's like, okay, yeah, I get that. Like Zack Ryder. Like, I thought that was a good one to bring him back. And honestly, I didn't realize how much I missed those two guys. I was never the biggest Zack Ryder fan. I thought the Long Island IC and all of that, I thought the character that he was able to do online and build all that up was really entertaining. But then you get into the ring, it's a little You get onto the mic, it's a little Like he wasn't for me. But when he came out, I thought it was cool. And when Dolph came out, I thought it was really cool. And you could see, like, he's maybe half a step gone, but the bumping, the selling, all of that, everything that made Dolph, still 100% there. And so that this did kind of make me realize, like, I kind of miss these guys. I kind of miss that a little bit. So if nothing else, the community creations section on WWE 2K is going to get a look here when the show is done. And hopefully these guys with the TNA partnership end up in the video game in 2026. But that's a conversation for a later date. Just a couple other ones here. It wasn't Alexa Bliss's best promo, but I thought storyline-wise it was pretty strong. It made sense with Charlotte Flair not wanting to be on Rhea Ripley's team. I thought that made a ton of sense. I saw someone complaining saying this could have just been the back half of the segment on SmackDown. Maybe, but like that's entirely reasonable for Charlotte to be like, hey, we kind of had a couple of things here. I'm not just sold on being like, no, I'm going to lock myself in a cage with you as my partner. That makes sense to me. And I appreciate that they went to that detail with it. And then Io hugging Rhea at the end there, and Charlotte absolutely cracking was really cool to see that as well. So it's going to be a fun War Games, I think, on the women's side that probably gets a couple other combatants because of what happened in the Intercontinental Championship match. Maxine Dupree winning the IC title. Very well done. Maybe a touch predictable, but very well done. With AJ and just like the quick, like, hey, like, look there. And I was a little worried because going into the match, Maxine comes out, and I had said, I thought they built this up pretty well. Kind of protecting her, but still doing the, hey, she's working, she's trying to improve thing. And she came out, not much reaction. Not much crowd reaction on that. I think they need to get rid of the Chad Gable theme that they had because, like, that was, toward the end, that was a heel thing for Chad Gable. And so I think she kind of needs her own stuff, even if it's with Otis and Tozawa still. We need our own music, because when that music hits, my first reaction isn't, hey, it's them. It's, oh, Chad Gable? No. American out. Oh, these guys. Okay. On it. Same page. Got it. Good. Cool. Hey, Maxine. That's not the reaction you want. Now, asking this current iteration of WWE for new music, a little dangerous at the moment. But I thought that was pretty good. I like the idea of her winning it. I thought the crowd got into it as it went along. That's kind of where I was getting at here. The crowd wasn't into it to start, but they got them there. And then the finish with AJ Lee, the place goes nuts. It's a great finish. Seemed like legitimate excitement from Maxine Dupree. I don't know if it's going to be a long title run, but these are the types of things that these belts are made for, is to create new stars out of this, right? Like that is basically what mid-level belts are supposed to be. And I thought they did it here with Maxine getting the win. And now it sets up probably Becky and AJ going into War Games and then probably a feud coming out of that one. Nikki Bella surprise attack on Stephanie Vaquer. We knew it was coming last week. We get it this week, but you don't have to do any promos or anything like that on a show where it would have got lost anyway. So just be like, I still hate you, and we're going to wrestle next week, or in a couple of weeks or whatever. I thought that was well set up, and understanding what else was happening on the show, I didn't think you need to go crazy with it. And then Gunther back, having his old theme, chef's kiss, loved that. And look, the match with Evans, I thought it took a little bit to really kind of get going, but once it did, boy did it really. And Javon Evans, like there's a lot there. I'm not the first person to say this, but there's a lot there with that kid. And the match with Gunther, I thought they played off of each other really, really, really effectively. And we're all assuming Gunther is the one now who goes into the last match with John Cena. So I thought it accomplished what it needed to. Absolutely, 100%. So overall, just a pretty good episode of Monday Night Raw. Kind of set up everything that we needed to as this went along. Tall John, I'm not a super wrestling fan, but is there a business partnership between WWE and TNA with all the cross matches? Like Joe Hendry, Zax, Dolph, or WWE just pay a premium one-night contract and insurance for those guys to be on WWE? There is an official partnership with WWE and TNA. It's not like AAA where WWE just bought them. They got sued by MLW for monopoly type business dealings, so buying up a competitor probably wouldn't do a whole lot for them, but they have a partnership. A lot of it shows through more in NXT. Like the TNA Knockouts champion right now is on NXT as an NXT wrestler. They've had the belts kind of go back and forth, but in terms of like main roster stuff, it has mainly just been one-offs. But yes, there is an official partnership between the two sides, and a lot of it I think was, or one of the big things was the television rights deal that apparently TNA is going to sign soon, with AMC being one of the favorites right now. So you can watch some TNA wrestling around what I presume is just 150 Walking Dead redos at this point. I don't know what else that network has, but still, sounds like that's going to be it. And so that was kind of what they were going for with TNA, is try to leverage this into a TV deal. And I think it's gone pretty well for TNA. They've had some pretty big shows over the last little while. So that is what's happening with the WWE right now. By the way, wrestling folks, I know we are 2 hours into the stream and an hour and a half into the live part of everything here today, and we're just getting to the wrestling now. If you don't want to sit through all the sports to get to the wrestling, there is a podcast for you. It is called it's called Living Room Lariat. It is available again on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your pods. Have been lacking on the bonus content over there, but that will be coming again as we kind of get back into the rhythm here going forward. Connor Doan back in the chat. Hello. It's been a bit. Thanks for popping back in today. Happy to see you. We're just talking some wrestling here on a Wednesday. Surprise. Let's go now to AEW as they get ready for Full Gear this weekend. A show that it's pretty easy to forget about in the wrestling landscape right now. Let's chat some AEW Full Gear. Let's look ahead. AEW Full Gear happening this weekend. And I really do, this one I feel like I'm leaning negative on, and I don't mean to. I like what AEW has been doing the last little bit. We've talked about it. I could use less deathmatch stuff every week, but still, I like what AEW has been doing. I like a lot of the stuff that's been going on, and I like a lot of the shows. But it also feels like I'm being negative, and I'm being negative again, because the show is this weekend, and it doesn't feel like an AEW pay-per-view weekend yet. Now, they have Dynamite coming up tonight, and it's a 3-hour show, so we're probably going to get a lot coming out of that. But when you think of everything that's going on in wrestling right now, with the WWE side, you have War Games coming up, you have the John Cena retirement, Seth Rollins' injury. There's been a lot of buzz about those things. With the AAA stuff as well, Dominic Mysterio's the champ there. You have some crossover things happening. There's been a lot of buzz with that. TNA, they just had Bound for Glory a bit ago, and Santana won the title, and now he's pissing off fans, and now he doesn't have the title anymore. It's Frankie Kazarian, and just a lot of buzz coming out of that. And even New Japan, who has been lacking buzz lately, they're getting ready for Wrestle Kingdom in a couple of months with Hiroshi Tanahashi's final match, and it's announced that it is Kazuchika Okada who is heading over there for that show. Disappointing a lot of people who are hoping that because it's at the end or the beginning of 2026 that John Cena would make his Wrestle Kingdom debut and wrestle Tanahashi, but that dream kind of fell aside. Either way, there's been a lot that's been talked about, and it just feels like this pay-per-view has been overshadowed. Even in the company, it feels like it's been overshadowed. When you come off of a pay-per-view not long ago, and then you're building up to Blood and Guts, it feels like, even though the pay-per-view is on Saturday, it feels like we're here on Wednesday, and it's like, okay, and now start the build for that. So it doesn't feel like there's been a lot going on for this card. They've built it, there's a bunch of matches, but it doesn't feel like this has that same kind of buzz that even I have felt for some AEW pay-per-views. It's going to be a solid show. Hangman against Joe in a steel cage. FTR against Brodito for the tag team titles is going to be a blast, and so on and so forth. I can do without, hey, these guys are going to make a bunch of money in this. I feel like we're kind of overdoing that at this point. We know it's going to be a big show, but it just doesn't feel like there's been that kind of a for it. And I thought they did okay with some of the Blood and Guts stuff, their version of War Games. I thought they did okay in incorporating some of these feuds into that, so you can kind of build to both at the same time. But you just built to one, and now it makes it an easier pivot to the other, but it's just not quite at that same level. So it kind of goes back to what I've talked about before, where I feel like if AEW wants to do the different than, pay-per-view maybe isn't it. If they could trim it back down to what they had before, even like a 6 pay-per-view model, and then a couple of monthly specials on TV, I think that's probably the better way to go about it, instead of trying to fit in a Blood and Guts special around a pay-per-view cycle. I feel like that would probably be the way to go. So I have no doubt this will be a good show. I just don't feel like that buzz is there. And just one more thing, I hate the national championship thing that we're doing. AEW doesn't need more belts. You don't need a belt that is confusingly similar to something that is happening in another promotion over in the NWA. You have another title tournament happening right now with the women's tag team titles. You don't need it. Also, just a little thing, we don't need more titles that sound like they're the major championship. Like, if I said to someone, hey, the AEW national title on the line tonight, oh man, they're big belts going for it? No, it's actually kind of a tertiary one. Oh, okay. What other belts do they have? Well, they have the AEW Unified Championship. Oh, that's their world title. Nope. Sorry. Should have led with that, but no, they don't. That's just it's a different one. Okay. And then they have the AEW World title. That has to be it, right? Yes. Okay, that one's it. Can we? It feels little thing, but like the Unified Championship, I hate that that's a thing, because that's like Cody Rhodes is the undisputed or unified WWE champion right now. Like, he isn't, but that's what they call it. That's what you call your main championship. So to call your secondary championship that bugs me. But they already have 2 mid-card championships. You don't need a third. I hate that they are doing this. And, it's going to be a belt that is defended all around the world. That was the Pan-American thingamabob from before that you already got rid of. So I kind of hate that this is a thing that's happening. So, again, needlessly negative about this show, because I am excited about it. But I just feel like there's a couple of things that I'm like, don't love that. How can they change that? We'll talk about it with the AEW Dynamite preview here in just a second. But of course, as always, you can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Twitter, X, same thing, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. So AEW has a pay-per-view to get ready for tonight. It is Dynamite, the go-home show for Full Gear. Can they get into Full Gear? Pretty loaded show. We'll talk about it. It is the go home for Full Gear for AEW. 3 hours of Dynamite and Collision on our televisions this evening. And I think the main focus of this, obviously, I think there needs to be a really hard push for Full Gear. Just did the look ahead to Full Gear coming up on Saturday, and it feels like it's getting lost in the shuffle right now. So tonight really needs to drive home the big stuff on this and just drive home that this is a pay-per-view that people need to see. So we get Hangman against Shibata tonight. That's going to be an unreal match. I'm so looking forward to that particular bout, but there needs to be a steel cage match for Samoa Joe. Gonna be awesome. Looking forward to it. But I feel like we need one more big thing to kind of get us there. I thought the setup for it at Blood and Guts was good with them starting to lower the cage. It's like, oh, if we want a cage match, we can. Feeling froggy, bud. Just jump. So I liked how they set that up. But again, it's just the overall awareness of the pay-per-view. I think we need to ramp that up a little bit. Also on the show, Kenny Omega's return. I don't love that it's setting up with Josh Alexander. Like the match, whatever comes out of that, my God, is it going to be great. But we go from like this death feud with Okada, and then the next night Kyle Fletcher takes him out. And so obviously now our focus turns to that guy, like Josh Alexander. Like, I feel like, and this happens with AEW, it happens with WWE a little bit too, where one person gets taken out and they don't want to do the obvious thing. So when he comes back, another person attacks him. And it's like, I will deal with you later. And we just get further and further and further away from what was supposed to be the big plot of him leaving. So I just didn't love that necessarily. But still, that's going to be a hell of a whatever we get out of Omega and Josh Alexander. Also, great match tonight. Okada against Mascara Dorado. They're calling it Double Jeopardy or Final Jeopardy or something tonight. It's two guys who have belts. So if Dorado wins, I think he gets an international or a unified, championship match. And if Okada wins, then the Don Callis family gets a shot at the CMLL Trios Championships at some point. So should be a fun match. I would imagine Okada is victorious there. We have two matches in the women's tag team tournament. Should be fun. It is Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm taking on the team that Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm will beat. And then Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford against Ty Mello. Or Jay Mello, with Ty Mello and Anna Jay. That one should be just an absolute squash for Megan Bayne. And not Penelope Ford. Penelope Ford out with injury. Marina Shafir. That should be an absolute squash there, probably. So, but still, I like that the tournament here is happening. One note. The Ring of Honor Women's Television Championship, I believe, is on the line tonight. The Undisputed Television Championship. Queen Aminata was the belt holder. She went down with an injury. Mercedes Moné, with all of the belts that she has, comes in and wins the interim championship. I get belt collector, the Ultimo thing that we're doing. Moné needs to lose tonight. I already hate that the TBS championship is being taken up in a world title feud. Statlander against Moné is going to be awesome. I just kind of hate that that's a feud that's going to be happening and taking up some valuable real estate, I think, when we should be using that mid-card belt to build up the mid-card. So I kind of hate when they do that, especially when we're still establishing a few things here in the women's division. But Mercedes certainly doesn't need a secondary championship in Ring of Honor right now. And so we can afford to have Mercedes drop a belt here. I don't think you do it clean 1, 2, 3 middle of the ring. I think Statlander has to get involved in this bout. Maybe a Willow or a Harley Cameron or something along those lines. But I think you have to get Statlander involved here to cost Mercedes Moné that Ring of Honor Television Championship. Because that just... Mercedes being on ROH, I don't know if she has been a lot. It doesn't do a whole lot for ROH. So let's just get that belt back into circulation here with Queen Aminata and give her a good win over Mercedes Moné and more opportunity to grow because there's a very good performer there. So that is that's what we're looking at here for this show today. Again, if you just want the wrestling, it is available in podcast form on Living Room Lariat. If you want all of it, it's available on Couch Potato Diary. And that's going to do it for the stream today. Coming up on 2.5 hours. We played a couple of previously recorded things off the hop, but still, I've been talking for an hour 47. It's lunchtime in Calgary, so we're going to go grab some food. We're going to go have ourselves a great rest of a day, and we're going to be back tomorrow. It is going to be, again, the live stream on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So we're going to have full weekend preview. NFL, fantasy, gambling, all that going to be there. We're going to get ready for AEW Full Gear. We're going to get ready for a really good boxing card that is happening on Saturday as well. A UFC fight night that looks pretty intriguing. We got a lot of weekend previewing to do. We might talk about how dog shit the Flames are. Who's to say? But we're going to get into some baseball as well, looking at the offseason previews. So it's going to be another long one tomorrow. So you're going to need that energy boost. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use the code PKPrimetime to get 25% off. Great flavors and 25% off. Really going to help fuel your next gaming session, or to just hang out with me on a Thursday morning in the Mountain Time Zone. If you missed any of it today, all of these are available in podcast form on Spotify or on Apple. If you only want one of the sports that we talk about, I know I cover a lot, but we have all the playlists up on YouTube right now, so you can just find the sports that you are looking for there. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Make sure you check out seaofdead403.ca. We got the Jerome shirts happening, all the proceeds going to Kids Sport. So watch the live stream tomorrow. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button over on YouTube, youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary. We got the subscription number finally over 500. So thank you guys so much for that. It means the world to me there. If you're watching this on Twitch or Kick, hit that follow or subscribe button if you can. That is always appreciated. And if you're listening in podcast form, leave a review and hit subscribe. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. I will talk to all of you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.